Hi players, bonjour from Paris. My name is Asaf and welcome to my channel Easy Board Games. Today I'm going to show how to play Northgard Uncharted Territories, which is absolutely one of my favorite true 4X board games. As always, if you learn something new or if you saw something that you like, please consider subscribing to my channel. I'm going to have a super nice free giveaway for you when we'll reach 500 subscribers. Ready to be the most famous clan on the board? Let's go to setup. Alrighty guys, so the first thing that we need to do is to place all the different tokens next to the playing area. We're going to have here the different building tokens, the big and the small, the different fame tokens, wood, lore, and food. Then we're going to take the turn track and put it also next to it, and the year token we're going to place on number 1. Pay attention that we have on the other side until turn 10, but we're not going to use it for this video. Then we're going to take all the unrest cards and place it next to the tokens. After that, we're going to take all the early development cards. Pay attention to the color at the top. We're going to give it a good shuffle and we're going to draw 2 cards per player. Since this is going to be a 2-player game, say hello Mr. Schwett, we're going to take 4 cards. The rest of the cards we can put back in the box. Then we're going to take the advanced development cards, again give it a good shuffle, and now we're going to take 4 cards per player, that means 8 cards. The rest of the cards again can go back to the box. Now the 4 cards of the early development we're going to put on top of the 8 cards of the advanced development. And this deck we're going to put right next to the unrest cards. Then we're going to take all the achievement cards. They're a little bit easier to detect because of their back, that the color is a little bit different. We're going to give them a good shuffle and we're going to draw as many cards as players. Again, this is a 2-player game, so we're just going to take 2. The rest of the cards we can put back in the box, and we're going to put these 2 achievement cards face up next to the playing area. Then we're going to place the starting map tile at the center of the table. So pay attention that the color here is a little bit different than a normal tile. And we're going to put it just like this, and it doesn't really matter how we're going to orient it. The rest of the tiles we're just going to shuffle and put them available to all the players. Then each player is going to choose a color and we'll take all the components of that color. So we have 14 soldiers for each color and 1 combat die. Also, each player will take their 6 starting cards that are basically all the same for all the colors, and we'll put them in their possession. We're going to have a player aid that we can put just next to us, and we're going to have this card that will help us to separate between our draw deck, the discard pile, and the active area. Now each player will choose a clan, and we can see that we have here quite a few. So I have chose for Mr. Schwett the Bear clan, and for me the Boar clan. Pay attention that for the Snake and the Bear clan, we're going to have a special token. And since Mr. Schwett is playing the Bear clan, he's going to put in his possession this Bear token right over here. In each clan, we're going to have 3 different cards. One of them will have the name of the clan itself, and 2 others will have different names, and you can see over here that it says Clan Upgrade. Those 2 cards of the clan upgrade we're going to put next to our playing area, but the first card that we have with the clan's name, we're going to shuffle with the rest of the 6 cards that we have. So in total, it's going to be 7 cards that we're shuffling and creating our draw deck. Let's do the same for Mr. Schwett. Now we're going to determine who is going to be the first player. So each player is going to roll 2 dice, and the player with the most axes on the dice is going to be the first player. So for me, I have 5 axes and Mr. Schwett has only 2. So I'm going to be the first player, and that means that I'm going to take this token and I will put it in my possession. Each player also is going to take their starting resources, and it's going to be 2 wood and 2 food. If you're playing with 4 or 5 players, the 4th and the 5th player will take 3 food and 2 wood. Now each player is going to draw 3 tiles and put it again in his possession, so 3 and 3. And now starting with the first player, we're going to choose one of these tiles to put adjacent to the starting tile. Pay attention that we cannot put a tile diagonally to other tiles. After we've put the new tile, we're going to take 3 units from our color and we're going to place them in one of the territories on the new tile. So here we have 2 options basically. We have either this territory right over here that is separated by this border, or this territory right over here that is basically now connected to this tile also. So this is one big territory that we have on 2 tiles. So I will choose to put my 3 units right over here, and as you already understood, they can be over here and here, it doesn't matter because it's going to be the same territory. Mr. Shwet is going to do the same thing, so he's going to draw a territory and he has to put it adjacent to the first tile that we have at the beginning of the game. So he will put it right over here and his 3 units can go either here or here. Mr. Shwet would like to have some distance, so he will put his 3 units on this territory. Now we're going to repeat this procedure, but the second tile that we're going to put, we can put it wherever we want. So it doesn't have to be adjacent to the first tile that we had at the beginning of the game. But we have a few restrictions. First of all, we need to make sure that we don't have something that is called a cut border. So as you can see right over here, we have a border that is basically cut in the middle. And that is something that throughout the game, it's something that we cannot do. So tiles need to be laid down as long as we have a continued border. The second thing is that the 3 other units that we're going to put right now cannot be in the same territory as the first 3 units that we've put, even though it's going to be on the new tile. So what I will do is just put this tile right over here, and I'll decide to put my new 3 units right over here in this territory. The third tile that we have left with, we're going to put back with the other tiles, and later we're going to shuffle all the tiles again. So Mr. Shwet, second tile, he's going to place right over here, let's say, and he's going to put 3 units right over here. 1, 2, and 3. And again, the third tile is going to be placed over here, and now we're going to shuffle all the other tiles. In Northgard, we're going to have a series of years, and in each year we're going to have a few phases that we will resolve. The first phase is the start of the year, where we're going to draw 4 cards from our draw deck into our hand. Then we're going to open some development cards that will create some sort of a development card market. Then we're going to continue to the second phase, which is the main one, the action phase, where we're going to either play a card or wait, replace a card, remove a card completely from the game, or upgrade a card. And the last option is to completely pass. The third phase is the harvest phase, where we're going to receive fame according to how many closed territories and their size. Also, we'll be able to collect the different resources in territories that we control. And we'll be able to trade the different resources in ratio of 3 to 1. The fourth phase is the winter phase, where we will feed the soldiers that we have, and we're going to spend food or even wood, depends on how many units we have on the board. The fifth and last phase is the end of the year, where we're going to check the winning conditions if someone has won the game, and we're going to continue to the next year. The game will be over if by the end of the year one of the players is controlling 3 closed territories, and in each one we have at least 1 big building, or it will be finished after the end of the 7th year, and then the player with the most fame points will be the winner. So now let's see what are the different actions that each player can do in their turn, and starting with the most common one, which is playing a card. So let's explain all the cards that we have. The first one is to recruit, and we can see over here how many units we'll be able to recruit. Now, in the basic cards that we receive at the beginning of the game, it will be only 1, but some of the other development cards will have the possibility to recruit more soldiers. So when we recruit, we basically take the amount of units that we're recruiting, and we're going to put them in a territory that we already control. Controlling a territory, it means a territory that we have at least 1 unit on it. So obviously we control this territory right over here and this one. If we would have had this soldier right over here, that would have meant that we control 3 territories. So when I'm recruiting, I'm just taking 1 unit and put it in one of these territories, here for example. If we would have had, for example, a card with 2 recruits, that means that we can put each of them in different territories as long as we control them. Now, there is no limit to how many units you can have on one territory, and the units themselves are only limited by the amount of units that you have in your supply. So basically, if you don't have any more units in your supply, you will not be able to recruit new units. If we have a situation where player does not have units at all on the board and they want to recruit new units, they will be able to choose whichever neutral territory that they see on the board. Neutral, that means that another opponent does not control that territory, and place the recruits there. The second action that we can have is to build. So we have 2 types of buildings that we'll be able to build. One of them is the big buildings and the other one is small buildings. And of course, in each type of building, we will have different options. So let's talk about it. First of all, when we want to build a small building, we will need to pay 1 wood. When we want to build a big building, we will need to pay 3 wood. As you can see, we have 2 types of locations where we can build buildings. Over here, we can build only small buildings, and in this location, we will be able to build only big buildings. The first type of building that we have is the woodcutter lodge. So if, for example, I'm going to build this building right over here, when we're going to have the harvest phase, I will be able to collect 1 more wood. The same thing we have with the food silo. So if I'm having this food silo right over here, at the harvest phase, I will be able to collect from this territory 2 food. 1 because this is what is stated on the tile, and another one thanks to the food silo. The same we're going to have with the carved stone, but pay attention that the carved stone I will be able to build uniquely on this type of location that has this small drawing of a carved stone. So if, for example, I have it over here, at the harvest phase, I will be able, or more accurately, Mr. Shwet will be able to collect 1 lore. Just to make sure that everything is clear, on this location you can build any type of small building that you would like, but a carved stone you'll be able to build only on this type of location. The next type of building is the defense tower, and when we're building it in a specific territory, when we will have a combat in this territory, the defender will be able to add 1 skull, but this is something that we will resolve when we'll talk about combat. The last type of small building that we have is the training camp. So when we're having this training camp in this territory, for example, when I will recruit, if I have recruited to this specific territory, I will be able to not only add the 1 recruitment, but another one because we have this small building, the training camp in this territory. For the big buildings, we have 3 kinds. So the first one is the Altar of Kings. So again, if I have this in this territory, for example, and Mr. Shwet is controlling it, when we're going to have the harvest phase, Mr. Shwet will gain 3 fame points. The second type of big building is the Forge. So if we have it in a specific territory, in the first phase, when we need to draw cards, we will be able to draw 1 more card for each territory that we control with that building. The last building is a fortress that we can see right over here. And just like the defense tower that we saw before, this building will add 2 access when we're going to have combat. Also here we're going to have a few restrictions. So first of all, once a building has been put down on a specific tile, it will not be able to be destructed or to move. The second thing is that the total amount of buildings that we can build are limited by the amount of tokens that we have with the game. So if, for example, we don't have any more forges and we would like to build one, we simply can't. And the last thing is that we cannot have 2 buildings of the same type in the same territory. So for example, if I have built a defense tower right over here, I will not be able to build a second defense tower in this location since it is in the same territory. Sometimes we're going to have a situation where by adding a new tile, we're basically connecting a territory that contains 2 of the same building. In this case, this is okay, no need to do anything. We're just going to have 2 buildings of the same type in the same territory. The next action is the movement action. Now, with this card, we'll be able to make as many independent moves that the card displays. With the basic cards that we have, we can do only one independent movement. But some later cards with advanced development, for example, will have more independent movements that we'll be able to take. When we're going to execute one movement, that means we can take as many units that we want from one specific territory and move them to an adjacent territory. In our case, for example, I will be able to move 1 up to 3 units from this territory to this one, this, or even this one. Only here we will start a combat that we will see a little bit later. Pay attention that we have here two types of border. We have the normal one, which is the dotted white line, and we have the dotted yellow line over here. In order to pass a dotted yellow line, we will need to use a card that has at least 2 movements on it. Now pay attention that I will not be able to use 2 different cards with one movement. It has to be one card that has at least 2 movements on it. So if, for example, I'm going to use this card, as you can see it has 4 movements on it, I will be able to perform this action. For example, 2 units that are going to pass this border right over here, that took 2 movement. Another movement I will move over here, and with the last movement I will take all the 3 units and move them to this territory. Also, if we have 2 movements, I will be able, for example, to move 1 over here and then take all the 4 units and again move to an adjacent territory. The next action that we have is to explore. When we're playing this card, we will draw one of the tiles and we will put it on the table with some restrictions. First of all, we'll be able to explore only from an open territory that we control. That means that basically right now, me and Mr. Shwet can explore from anywhere that we want. But if, for example, we would have had this situation right over here, that means that these 2 soldiers will not be able to explore. So I will not be able to explore here, for example, or to the other directions. I would have been able to explore only over here and here, since here we have an open territory. Again, the new map tile cannot go diagonally, it has to be adjacent like we saw before. And as we said, the borders cannot be discontinued. So this, for example, is not allowed because a border always has to be continued in this way, for example. If by the extreme, unlikely, super rare, never happens case of a tile that cannot be placed anywhere in a place that you can explore, you simply take this tile, put it at the bottom and draw a new one. The last thing is that you cannot put a new tile if it will create a situation of now one big territory that contains units from more than one faction. So basically you cannot trigger a combat by exploring a new territory. If by exploring you're going to place a tile and it's going to create a closed territory, you're going to earn fame as the number of tiles that that territory contains. In this example, me, the yellow player, is going to earn 3 fame points because the territory that we just closed has 3 tiles. So I will just take 3 of these tokens of fame and I will put it in my possession. Sometimes we'll have cards with this symbol at the top, and that means that the action is a little bit more special and we're going to have some text on the card that we will need to resolve. With some development cards, we're going to have this symbol right over here, this lightning, and that means that we can play this card either before or after we're playing the main card from our hand. If we'll have multiple cards with this sign, we can play any number of them or a combination before or after the main card that we're playing. So for example, if I have these 2 cards right over here, first of all, I can build a building. So I'm paying 1 wood for my supply and choosing one of the buildings, this one for example, to put right over here. And then I'm going to recruit 2 soldiers as stated on the card. So I'll just take 2 soldiers from my supply and put, for example, 1 over here and 1 over here. The other actions that we can take on our turn are, for example, wait, and that means that we will take 1 card from our hand. We're going to place it in the active area without resolving the action itself, and then we're going to pass the turn to the next player. Also, we will be able to replace a card, and that means that we will take one of the cards that we don't want, for example, from our hand. We're going to put it down again in the active area without resolving it. We're going to pay one lore to the general supply, and that will allow us to draw from our draw deck to our hand. Another thing that we have is to completely remove a card from the game. And for that, I just choose a card from my hand, completely put it back in the box by paying 2 lore back to the general supply. And then I can draw 2 cards from my draw deck. The fifth option that we have is to upgrade. And that means that by paying 3 lore back to the general supply, I can take a card from my hand, either put it in the active area or completely remove it from the game, and then choose one of the clan upgrades that we have next to us. The new card we will take and put it in our hand. The last option that we have is to completely pass our turn, and that means that if we still have cards in our hand, we'll just put them all in the active area, and then we will choose one of the development cards that we have in the market. So if I just passed, I put all my cards from my hand to the active area, and then I can choose one of the cards that we have in display right over here. The development card that we just chose has to go to the top of the draw pile. And the first player who is passing their turn in that specific year will also be the first player in the next year. When you did the pass action, you will no longer continue and play at that specific year until all the other players have passed also. After all the players have passed and of course taken their development cards, we're going to finish the action phase and moving on to the next one. During the harvest, first of all, players will receive fame points according to how many close territories they have and how big they are. For a close territory that spreads over 2 tiles, they will receive 1 fame point, while on bigger territories, they will receive 2 points. So if we would have had this case, for example, Mr. Shwet, the blue player, would have gained 1 fame point because he controls a territory that has only 2 tiles. On the other hand, if this was the situation, the yellow player, me, I would have gained 2 fame points for this territory. Pay attention that for open territories, you don't get any fame points. The second part of the harvest is to collect the resources that we have in the territories that we control. Super easy. As you can see right now, I control 2 territories that have apples on them, so I will just take from the general supplies 2 apples, 2 food. While Mr. Shwet will only receive 1 food from this territory right over there. Some territories will contain lore, other territories will contain wood, and some other territories will even contain fame points. The last thing in the harvest phase is the trade resources, where you will be able to take any 3 resources and exchange them to any 1 resource. During winter, according to this table, you'll have to feed the soldiers. So if you have 1 to 3, there is nothing, 4 to 6, 1 apple, and so on. If a player cannot pay the required resources, then they must pay as much of the required resources as they able and to take an unrest card. So if, for example, I have here 9 soldiers and only 1 apple, as you can see according to the table, I will need to pay 2, but I don't have. So this apple I must pay in any case, and then I will take 1 unrest card. This unrest card will go to the top of the draw deck of that specific player. Unrest cards have no special effect. You will not be able to remove these cards from the game, and the owner at the end of the game will lose 5 fame points. At the 5th phase, the end of the year, first of all, we will check the end of game conditions. So there are 2 ways to win in Northgard. The first one is that if at the end of the year, someone controls 3 closed territories, and in each one, it has at least 1 big building. So for example, let's say that Mr. Shwet has at the end of the year this situation. He controls 1 territory, it's a closed one, and it contains a big building. So he will need 2 more territories like that, that means closed territories with a big building, in order to win at the end of the year. If we'll have multiple players that reaching this condition, then the tie will be broken by the player with the greatest number of fame. If by the end of the 7th year, nobody has won with the first win condition, the player that has the most fame by the end of the 7th year will be declared as the winner. Each player will add the total value of their fame tokens, 1 fame for each set of 3 resources of any type still in their reserve. We're going to add the fame value displayed on all of their development cards and achievement cards. And of course, we're going to take down 5 fame points for each unrest card in their possession. If at that point we have a tie, then it will be broken by the greatest number of controlled territories, open or closed. Then if we still have a tie, by the most units on the map. And then if we still have a tie, it will be broken by the greatest number of buildings on the map. Let's talk about the last aspect of Northgard, and that is combat. A combat will be triggered automatically whenever there are units belonging to 2 different players in the same territory. So the attacker will be the person who just moved into the territory, and the defender is the player that controlled the territory where the attacker moved to. The combat, of course, involves only the units that are in that specific territory. If we're having other combats in the same turn, they will be resolved one by one. And the active player will be able to choose which combat they would like to resolve first. So when we have a situation like this, we're going to have a few steps. The first one is to count how many units we have for each side. Each soldier is going to be counted as 1 axe. In step 2, we're going to add all the bonuses, either from the card or from the building in that specific territory. Sometimes maybe even the passive bonus of that specific clan. Then, starting with the attacker, both players decide how many food tokens they would like to discard. Each discarded food token will be considered as another axe. We cannot discard more food tokens than soldiers. So if, for example, me, the yellow player, I have 4 food tokens, I will not be able to discard the 4 of them to have a bonus of 4 axes. I will only be able to discard a maximum of 3. After that, starting with the attacker, each player is going to roll the dice. If we have, for example, this situation as we can see right over here, then the attacker needs to decide if he would like to have it as a skull or as an axe, but before the defender rolls their dice. Then we will determine who's the winner. So we need to sum up all the axes that we have for each side. Then we will determine the casualties. So for each skull, the other faction will lose 1 of their units. And then the player with the highest number of axes is the winner in that combat. Only after that, each player is going to remove soldiers according to the amount of skulls the opponent has afflicted on him. And the loser will retreat to an adjacent friendly or neutral territory. So we had here a lot of information. Let's see how it really goes. Let's say, for example, that Mr. Shwet over here has this building that gives him 2 more axes. And let's say that in my turn, I have decided to play this card that gives me not only movement, but also a bonus of X if this movement triggered a combat. So I'm going to move my 3 warriors over here. And now we're going to have a combat. So the first thing, as we said, is to count the amount of forces. So I have here 3, and that means 3 axes. And also Mr. Shwet has here 3, that means also 3 axes. Now we're going to put the bonuses. So I have 1 X bonus, while Mr. Shwet has 2. So now it's going to be 5 axes for Mr. Shwet and 4 axes to me. Now, how much bonus I would like to give to my warriors with food. So let's say that I decided to discard 2 food tokens. So now we have 3 plus 2 plus 1. It's already 6 axes. And Mr. Shwet is only going to give 1 food token. So that means also 6 axes. And now it's time to roll the dice. So me as the attacker, I will roll the die first. As you can see over here, I have 2 skulls on my die, and that means that in any case, I'm going to afflict 2 deaths on the soldiers of Mr. Shwet. Now Mr. Shwet is going to roll his die, and we can see here that he has 2 axes and 1 skull. And that means that he already has 1, 2, 3, 6, and 8, which is higher than me. So first of all, he is the winner. Now we're going to apply the casualties. So he's going to lose 2 units back to his supply. I'm going to lose 1 unit. It's going to go back to my supply. But in any case, he's the winner. So I need to retreat to either a friendly territory or a neutral one. Since I don't have here friendly territories, I can either go to this territory or go back to this territory. Also, it's important to say that when you retreat, it has to be through a border that is a white dotted line, the normal one, and not the rough territory as we can see over here. In some cases, the losing side will not be able to retreat because maybe there are no more neutral or friendly territories, or maybe he needs to pass a rough border. In this case, if you don't have a territory to retreat to, then you're going to lose the retreating soldiers.